They say hug a tree. I like to hug a celery tower. This thing is so incredible. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how to grow celery on a tower, what to expect, how to make it work if you want to do it. And there was a question that I had, can you grow enough celery on a single tower to juice every day? My goal is to juice celery about 5 days a week. There's a lot of people who believe in juicing celery every day to support so many things. It comes from the teachings of medical medium, and he just has thousands and thousands and thousands of testimonies out there of people who do this or have done it and had incredible results. So I've wanted to try it for a while, but grocery store celery really creeps me out, and it's for a couple of reasons. First off, there's a lot of stuff going around, if you are in the Instagram world, about the things they're spraying, the disinfectants they're spraying on food in the grocery stores, those misting machines. It also happens with things that are triple washed and bags and with celery. And the reason is that food is grown, not all of it obviously, but a lot of it's grown on farms, next to farms where there are animals, and there is spray. When they spray the fields with the animal waste, that blows in the wind and gets on lettuce, romaine, things like that. So it makes them super high risk for very dangerous contaminants. So they use disinfectants with food to cleanse them and make sure that that's not a problem. Now, I certainly don't want bad bacteria that's blown over from an animal farm, because that can be very, very dangerous. But I also don't want chemical disinfectants on my food, because certain foods, like, we obviously don't know how much they're putting on there. So is it safe in small doses? Maybe. But those misting machines in the grocery store are spraying, we don't know how many times they're spraying on that produce before it's purchased. So it's just really hard to gauge the safety of that. Okay, so I moved this out of the rain. I would wait until the rain stops, but I live in the Appalachian forest, which is a temperate rainforest, and it rains all the time. So we'd never make any videos if I waited on the weather to cooperate. But celery is, I don't know if you guys ever did this when you were a kid. I remember doing this in school with carnations and with celery. They would take, as part of a science experiment, water with food coloring, and then put this celery into that water, like the tip of it, and it would suck up the water and change the coloring of the celery stalk. Very, very porous vegetable. It's actually in the herb family, which I think is why it's so powerful to juice. And that concerns me if they are dipping these things and soaking them in a disinfectant. Gut health, we know now. There's a new documentary on Netflix out called Hack Your Health, The Secret of Your Gut, I believe is the name. And these are things we know now, the importance of gut health and how it affects our mental health, how it affects pretty much everything in our bodies. And when we're putting disinfectants on foods and we're living in an over-sterilized world, me personally, I think it puts us at risk of damaging or, just messing with our gut microbiome. Vegetables are prebiotics. They are what we want to feed our microbiome. And if they are full of antibacterial agents that go right into our gut, and our gut's like, yay, prebiotic. Oops, it's actually filled with things that are going to kill us. It doesn't seem like a very smart idea to me, personally. So I don't buy grocery store celery. I haven't in years. I actually think it tastes like dead compared to homegrown celery. So the challenge with growing celery in the soil is it's a seasonal crop. It tends to be a cool weather crop. I have not found it to be sensitive to weather grown in the tower. I grew it all summer long, all winter long in this garage, and it just doesn't seem to be phased by warmer temperatures in our area. Now we kind of max out. Our highs are low 90s. So if you're in somewhere that's in the upper 90s a lot, this may be a crop you want to grow indoors. I started these indoors, and my intention was to grow it indoors full time. And I had just struggled with some aphids on my tower because we're growing in a garage. And I couldn't, when you're growing that much of the same thing and you have all those leaves, it just became too much for me to want to manage. So I brought them outside. They instantly got cleaned up. I haven't had a problem since they were outside. And they do grow faster outside. But there will be a point where I need to bring them into the garage when it's freezing out. I'm going to show you guys the formula for how to always have celery, whether you want 2 celery stalks for just using in soups and recipes. It's so nice to have on a tower because of that reason. Like I can always come out here and grab celery for a recipe, and sometimes that's just one of those things you forget or you don't have on hand in your refrigerator, nor do we want to. It's usually old, I don't know. I'm just like flashbacks of celery that sat in the fridge for too long and what it looks like, and it gets all slimy. It's gross. So I think it's a very valuable crop to keep on a tower. Now, if you only have 1 tower and you're trying to grow a lot of greens, it might not be worth having on there. Longer crops like beets and celery, these are commitment crops. And we have to go through a process in order to get them established and keep them established on a tower so that you don't feel like you're waiting and waiting and waiting and you harvest 1 beet and then it's another 7 months before you're back to the process again. If we interval plant these things, we can harvest them frequently and always have them. And it doesn't feel like that. You just have to get it established. And again, this goes back to if you have 1 or 2 towers, is growing beets worth it? It depends. I always have beets going because if I don't, we don't have them in our diet because I don't like to buy them at the store. So it's worth it to me, but I have a lot of towers. So you kind of have to weigh that. I do think if you use celery, it can be very worth it to grow it on a tower as long as you just set it up with a good interval process. So let me tell you what that is, and then we'll dive specifically into how to do that for juicing. Okay, we're back outside. The rain has stopped for a moment. When you're growing celery, and I talked about this in part 1, I will link part 1 to this video below. You want to seed them more than 1 seed. Celery seeds are super, super tiny. They take a really long time to germinate. It can be easily 8 weeks before they go from my germinator, my seedling grow station, to the tower. That's a really long time. And then at that point, we have another like 120 days for celery to get mature. These are a long commitment crop. When they're younger, they're going to be, oh, this one broke, kind of spindly, right? This doesn't look like the grocery store food. It's just thin. It's just growing. This is a young plant still. They're going to look like that for a while. And if you have more than 1 seed per rock wool, they're never going to get past this phase. They're going to be almost like leaf celery. They're not going to get that thick grocery store stalk that we're going for. But if we put 1 seed in a rock wool, our chances of failed germination are really high. It's just really hard to manage a seed that small. So what we can do is seed them. I like to seed them about 6 to 10 seeds per rock wool. Now I'm definitely growing at a much larger capacity here. So if you're only wanting, I would say like if you're gonna grow celery, 3 plants in a good interval, maybe even 4, timing is going to be the best option. And what that means is you'll have some in the nursery, some that are, you know, adolescents, well, young children, some that are adolescents, and we get into the adult size. Then when you harvest your adult, or at some point it's ready to come out of the tower, because they do get to a point where they've just maxed out in maturity and we want to take them off and eat them at their peak. You can be eating off of it as it's growing. You can keep it on your tower and eat off of it for a while as it's big, but at some point you will want to remove it and start over. You'll kind of know what that point is, because like every plant, when it goes past its peak, it's either going to want to bolt and go to seed, or I've had some like last summer, I just left them on way too long and they started to have celery that was going bad, like some of the stalks around the base. So there are signs that you can look for, and then you're going to repeat the process. So if we only want 1 celery per rock wool, how do we go from planting 6 to having 1? And what we do is we multi-seed them. This one has 1, 2, 3 in it. So 3 took in this one. And I'm going to put this in the tower. In a minute, we're going to harvest a mature one that we're going to go inside and juice. It'll be our first one. I'm dying to see what it tastes like. And I'm going to put this in its spot. And this is going to continue to grow until it gets maybe 6 inches or so, 5 or 6 inches for most of them. We want them pretty big. And then I will break them apart and give each one their own rock wool. Celery tolerates this being broken apart really well. It doesn't harm it at all. I've never had one die after doing it. The roots are all going to be intertwined. It doesn't matter. You can literally just rip them apart. And I show that in part 1 of this series on growing celery, which you can watch in the link below. So at that point, it goes into the tower and we wait. And so if you're growing, let's say you want 3. Celery takes 120 days. And so I think it's 120 or 140. It's a long time. And if you're growing inside, it can take even longer. So you need to divide that number in half and be starting seeds that often. Now, if you are interval planting and you're multi-seeding these, and now we have 3, you're gonna put them in your tower. You're gonna have 3 all the same age when you first start this process. So what I recommend doing there is allow 1 to get big, eat off of 1, take the other 2 out and juice them. It's totally up to you. But then we're gonna continue to do this process so that when you go to take 1 out, this one's growing, you've got 3 in there. You can do that again. You can just thin them at that point if you want, if you don't want that much celery, or you can plant them and increase how many you're growing. You'll have to play with that and do some celery math based on what your goals are. But I do highly recommend, regardless, multi-seed them, let them grow, and then separate them. And then at that point you can decide. You can grow them on the baby greens extension kit until they're, you know, twice this size, and just pull them out and juice them or add them to soup or whatever. They don't have to be full grown to use them. It's just we want that celery stalk that's full grown for a lot of recipes, right? Because that's what makes it so delicious. And this one's not even full grown. This one's about halfway, but you can see how thick this is. So I can use this for all sorts of amazing recipes, like untuna that I make with chickpeas, soups, anything like that. So you'll just have to do your own math on that. I am doing this at a large scale. So this is more for people who want to juice off of a tower. We need to be doing this for sure, because we do need several growing at the same time. And food doesn't always grow the same at the same time either. I can put these 3 in. These all were started at the same time. And you have one that's tiny here, one that's pretty big, and one that's medium. It's like a small, medium, large version. So when I put these into the tower, if I put the large one up towards the top, it's gonna get more sun. Or if I put it on my south-facing side, it's gonna get more sun. It's probably gonna grow faster. It may just grow faster anyway because the genes are a little bit stronger than this one. So even if you start 3 at one time, just know they can grow at different rates too. So that is the trick. Always be starting seeds, always be rotating. Now, I said take the number of time it takes to mature and then divide that in half, and that's when you want to start your seeds. But that's going to be consistent. So I am starting seeds right now for this tower. I have been going at about every 6 weeks in order to maintain it. Now I haven't started them, and I would say it's been over 8 weeks, because I kind of leaped in and got a really good handle on it. And so I've been able to slow down. But today, since I'm harvesting something, that is always my clue. If you start picking tomatoes off your tomato plants, it's time to start a new tomato. If you start harvesting a whole celery, definitely start new seeds, and you should already have another baby and another medium-sized one on your tower somewhere. So that's just another like trigger that it's time. So let's look at one that's on here that's multi-seeded that I can break apart. When I harvest the one that we're going to harvest today, I'm going to put this one in. So I have other ones on here ready to be broken apart. So I need to decide tomorrow, do I want to come harvest an entire whole head? Is it a head? Rib? I don't know. A whole thing of one plant of celery? Or do I want to come around and maybe just take some ribs and get enough ribs off of a bunch of them in order to have a huge juice, whatever size juice? I haven't decided yet. I think we're going to need a combination of the two, because if I harvest 5 of these this week and I've got another one of these, let me find it. I know there's one in here. Here we go. Yeah, this one's big. This one has this one has 5 plants in it. So, and these are pretty big. So looking at this, I am probably going to harvest an entire, and looking at the size of my celery, and I'm going to take you guys in closer in a minute so you can see this. I am probably going to see if I can harvest 5 heads this week and give these their own rock wool. If my starts look like this, no, I would just eat ribs and wait. If all of my celery is only about this big, I'm not going to harvest the heads yet. I'm going to harvest just some ribs and wait a little bit longer. So again, we're doing celery math and we have to kind of gauge. And here's the thing. You may harvest 5, get 5 in, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, there's no big ones to harvest. And then you go to the rib method, and then all of a sudden it's been sunny and beautiful for 5 days and you've got 5 that need to be harvested again. That's just the nature of plants. The goal is to get a good system with this and stay on top of it, and you will always have something you can harvest to juice, whether it's handfuls of ribs or entire plants. We also have the issue of, I don't like to take food off the tower and store it. We want our food to be here and then go right to the juicer. That is the most nutrient dense option. Anytime you're eating anything off the tower, if you can take it off the tower and put it right into your body, you're gonna get the most nutrients. So how do we do that if we're not gonna harvest 5 at once and we're gonna break apart that one I just showed you and give each one a rock wool? Couple of options. You can put them in a holding spot. I do this all the time. I put them in one of these little trays that I'm always speaking of and feed them nutrient water. And then tomorrow I'll add one, I'll harvest the whole head, add one. The next day harvest, add, harvest, add. That is how I personally would handle that situation. Or if I had a free spot in another tower, I might put it in the nursery. Rarely do I have a free spot in another tower. This is typically the method I use for timeouts with plants. It's better to have your young things in timeout than to allow your mature food to sit in a fridge and lose nutrients. The goal, or my goal anyway, is the most nutrient dense, cleanest food possible going into our bodies. So that's it. Like, I hope that covered everything. Interval planting, starting your seeds, getting a good system, and then you're just gonna have to kind of play with the math a little bit. Let's take a look at some of these. So here I have the pink Chinese celery, and they're not super wide yet. They're probably not going to get super wide. This variety tends to be skinnier and taller. I cannot believe how cold it is and how rainy it is right now. So this is also extremely potent celery. If you are new to celery, even eating it fresh celery tastes very different than store-bought celery. It's incredible. It has amazing flavor, totally different. This is going to be too potent. These are ones that I will be adding in to my juices because I just wanted some different nutritional profiles. I also wanted to give it a try. I think anytime we can add color in our food, we get extra health benefits from that. So just beware. Don't go out and start an entire tower of Chinese celery. I wouldn't even grow Chinese celery if you are not really advanced in your tolerance for strong foods. I do dehydrate that and turn it into celery salt. It's really, really, really potent, so it makes for an incredible celery salt that you can add to recipes. So that's what that is. Let's get closer here. All right. It's always hard. So there we go. That one's pretty grocery store like. I would say this one has more time. By the way, I'm growing these in the baby greens extension. If I didn't mention that, I have 64, 62, 32, somewhere in the 60s. I have that many grow ports on here. So you have to go back and watch that part 1 video. So I have standard grow ports on the bottom. I put my baby greens extension kit in the middle, which is 32 grow ports plus a home. This is on a home tower. A home tower has 16 baby greens when it comes with that. And then I put the standard grow ports on the top. I didn't do that for any particular reason other than when I built the tower, I built it wrong, but it's working great. So at the top we have standard grow ports, and I actually have really liked that because those are getting bigger up there, and towards the bottom standard grow ports, and then in the middle it's just like tons and tons of baby greens, and these grow fine in the baby greens extension kit. I have not had any problems. There are some leaves that are a little brown, but those are not because of the growing conditions or anything. It's just plants. Like, we get hot, we get cold, we get a lot of rain, and often I'll see people say like, what is this little spot on my plant? It's just because it's a living thing, and we all have spots, right? We all just have blemishes. So, all right, so let's walk around this tower and just see. I had one in mind that I was gonna pull. This one here has thyme. It's not as wide as I would like to see. I've been eating off of this one actually, but it's really tall. So we're trying to go for tall and wide. The ones on the top are wider, but they're shorter. And the reason is they're younger, and they're getting wider here because they're getting more sun. So that is also going to affect whether you get really tall or you get wide, is due to the sun and the exposure. There's one in here that's really wonky shaped, but it's, again, I'm gonna give it time. I might juice that one sooner than it's full grown. It just got a really weird shape to it. Yeah. So we have a couple of options. And again, they don't have to be full grown. We can totally take one of these wide ones off the top. That's going to be plenty. That's like a grocery store. When I'm saying it's wide and short, this is probably equivalent to what you get in the grocery store. The others are just taller, and I know they can get bigger than that. So I'm just kind of looking for, which one do we want to try? I will probably juice those top ones this week because I have babies. And again, the babies are going to grow faster, especially once I separate some of those big ones. If I were to put those up there, they're going to be faster growing than something down here, just because they get all that like first sun. All right, now here's the thing. When it comes to food on the towers, and one of the biggest things I see happen with people is every food has its peak and then it goes on the decline. Things look so great, and it's so fun to have them, that it's hard to harvest food sometimes because we're like, it's got more time, it can get bigger, I know it can, and then all of a sudden goes over that peak and it's not so great anymore. And I'm having that problem with this tower. I've been putting this off because I just don't want to harvest anything because it's so fun having them. But let's do it. We're gonna do it. All right, this is the one I'm gonna harvest. And I will clip in a minute because I'm actually going to harvest this with the camera flipped the other way so I can use it for a reel. I'll add that here. It also had a baby. They do that. They can spread from the roots. And so we have a new celery here that's developed. So I'm actually going to take this. We're just going to rip it off. We don't need much of the roots. And we're going to I have some rock wool here. We're just gonna stick it in and give it some time. I don't have a place to put that one right now, so I'm gonna put it in a little time out. It's totally fine there. We wait, we'll put it in when we have another spot, when we harvest one tomorrow. I also have the option that if it's not enough juice, we can come out and harvest some more stalks. So here are the roots. They're tiny. These do not have, and it's the reason why you can do this many on a tower. I was shocked at how little water these actually use. They don't use a ton of water, and they don't get big root systems. There's another baby that's developed here. I'm just gonna stick that in here. There's actually another one right there. So you've got options too when you harvest your big ones, that there could be some babies. But yeah, that's it. I mean, that's why I can grow them in the baby greens extension kit. It didn't break off. I didn't lose any in there. That would be very difficult to grow in the baby greens extension kit if when you pulled these out, we were breaking off roots every time, because you don't want dead roots in your system. But I did a thorough check after harvesting this. It did kind of want to break off. But again, it's in the baby greens extension kit, and there's a ledge there. And so I could have grabbed some needle nose and pulled it out if it did break off. So just be mindful, get all the roots out, but they don't have much roots, which makes them an amazing crop for the baby greens extension kit if we want to maximize. All right, let's go inside and juice. I'm so curious. Okay, I've grabbed some other things. I'm filming another video where we're going to use all these greens that I harvested the other day and the kohlrabi, and we're making pickled beets. If you want to watch that, definitely subscribe. It will be out soon. Lots of food. Always lots of food. What is that? Oh, that's the roots. Okay, so let's get our celery. These are a couple of stalks that broke off. Now, with celery, the most potent flavor is in the leaves. So I'm not going to juice all the leaves. I'm actually going to add some to some of these recipes I'm working on, because there's superfoods in them and a lot of things we want, but too many may make this juice not drinkable, and we don't want that. I want it to actually taste good, and like I want to feel encouraged to juice every day. And I have made drinks so strong that it kind of robs the joy, and then you don't want to juice them. I also like to eat the celery leaves. I put them in my tabbouleh. I think they're great. But again, juicing them can overpower. Juicing all of them can overpower the flavor of this juice. Okay, let's wash. I may need to go get some more celery stalks. I don't know if this is going to be enough. We will see. We're learning. And I always wondered if I'd need to harvest 2 to have enough juice. In which case, again, I'll have to just keep practicing. If I need to do that, I think it's fine. I have plenty of starts, as you saw, especially because we got babies off of here. So it might be a combination of harvesting 1 large one and then some stalks off of other ones, or harvesting 2 a day. I don't know. Let's see. Let's just play with it. This is my Kuvings Revo. It's actually designed for people who juice celery and carrots. It has this side shoot here. Love this. I'll put a link to it below. I love it because you don't have to do anything. You just stick the food in. I love it because you don't have to do any prep or any chopping, especially with things like apples and lemons, which for me, it's like I'm going to the gym. I want to throw it in, grab my juice, and go. I don't need the top. Here we go. I had to flip the camera to show the other side of it for making a reel, just, you know, the struggles of a content creator. It did not give us enough. We would need to do a whole nother stock. So, learning. But it tastes, let me taste. It's not going to be easy to drink. It's not terrible to drink. It's actually not super salty. It's just to take a minute. I think I put too many leaves because it's got a little bit of a bitter bite. Yeah, sweet, and then a kick in the face. It's all right. It's good for you. Thanks for joining me. I'll keep you guys updated. There's a whole series devoted to growing your own celery to juice on a tower. So give it a try. Post in the comments if you drink celery juice, if you've had success with it, helping with things, helping support your body. If you decide to try this, definitely post your experience in the comments. I also have a private Facebook group. You can find that link below where we can talk about it. And yeah, I mean, it's a learning curve. Thanks for joining me on the learning curve of this. Recap, it's growing well. It's going to work. Less greens, more stalk, so that I can actually enjoy this. Because again, that sweetness, when that sweetness comes through, I could drink a whole glass of it. But that kick in the face from the bitter greens is like, it's tough. Cheers.